Hi everyone, some gamer dude here. Lands, an iconic part of Magic the Gathering, and incredibly influential in the card game medium. Also highly divisive due to the effects they have upon gameplay. So much so that games were created just to answer the frustrations caused by lands. While I couldn't find a source, I've read that even Richard Garfield, the creator of Magic, has said that he wouldn't use the land system if he created Magic today. I disagree. I just think they're neat. But before we get to the topic of today, if you like today's content and want to help the channel, be sure to share the video, like and subscribe. Also remember to check out my game Hyperjukin. We're gearing up for the second set's preview season. Teasers for 2 of the 3 new characters are now up on socials. Link to the website where you'll find everything in the description. So back to lands. Lands are the resource cards of Magic the Gathering. Included in the library, what Magic calls the deck, you can play one each turn and tap them to produce a resource called mana used to pay for other cards. Lands come in 5 assorted flavours, and different cards require different flavours to be used as their payment cost. The purpose of lands is multifaceted. By being one a turn, they produce a linear scale of progression, causing cards to be played at an appropriate time for the game's pacing. By coming in a variety of colours, it adds to the theming of the game, and stops decks from just being all of the best cards at any given time jammed together. This, along with the nature of the land card being included in the deck, creates inconsistency for the purpose of creating a more feels-good first impression, by lessening the influence player skill has over the outcome of the game. Finally, by being inconsistent, it creates replayability. You don't know how draws will go, so every game has a higher probability of being different. The intent behind an idea and how it's received doesn't always line up, and this is where the issues with lands arise. The main point of contention with lands is that deliberate inconsistency, producing one of a series of phenomena known collectively as mana screw. Not drawing enough lands, drawing too many lands, and not drawing the right lands. Again, by design. But while the intent was to create an experience wherein lower skilled or new players can win versus higher skilled or veteran players, what actually happens is that the phenomena just creates a feels bad experience overall. The win isn't earned, so it's like punching a wet paper bag. While the loss feels incredibly bad as the player was screwed by random chance. They lost due to nothing within their control. One player literally could not play the game. While there is generally an argument for deck construction ratios to solve the issue, this is more help than it is an actual fix to the issue. General rule of thumb seems to be 24 lands is about right for a 60 card deck, but it doesn't cause you to draw lands when you need them, not draw them when you don't, nor does it cause you to draw the correct lands. What it does help is stabilize land draw a bit, and combined with both lands that produce multiple colours and colour fixing cards, mitigate the influence chance has over the game. Not always successful and regularly creates a price barrier to the game, but it's something. Games influenced by Magic the Gathering have tackled the issues with lands in a variety of ways, but I want to look at 3 different games in particular, starting with another Wizards of the Coast property, Duel Masters. Duel Masters does away with resource cards completely, instead turning every card into a resource card and giving resources their own zone called the Mana Zone. Once per turn, you may place any card from your hand into your Mana Zone upside down, where it may be tapped to produce mana of the same civilization. The only exception being dual civilization cards, which come into the Mana Zone tapped. Duel Masters is one of the most beloved and copied systems for good reason. You're never without lands, nor are you always drawing into them. Everything is at the player's discretion. You can play heavier volumes of fatter cards, because you can just dump them into the Mana Zone. Duel Masters even has effects to grab cards from the Mana Zone, so if you don't draw into more copies of cards you placed into the Mana Zone, you can still access them provided you're running that support. It's not without its flaws, but it's a pretty good system. Force of Will ditches the resources in the main deck and places them into an external deck called the Magic Stone deck. Each turn you may rest your ruler to place the top card of your Magic Stone deck into play, where it may be tapped to produce whatever attribute its effect produces. Force of Will's Magic Stone deck is one of the most overrated resource systems of the entire medium. While it removes drawing too many or too few resources from the equation, giving players one resource per turn consistently unless they do something else with their ruler, what it doesn't remove is drawing the wrong resource. This is something the game has tried to answer in a variety of ways, except the most obvious one, scrying the Magic Stone deck. This, combined with a bunch of other quirks in the game's overall design, results in Force of Will skewing too far in the opposite direction. It's too consistent, to the point of games feeling samey, and decks arguably capable of doing too much. The recently released One Piece card game takes an interesting approach that ends up very similar to the World of Warcraft TCG and Hearthstone. The game separates the resource cards called Don cards into a separate deck like Force of Will's Magic Stones, and you get 2 resources each turn. Instead of requiring specific resources and resource cards producing those resources, all cards cost generic and Don cards produce generic resources. One Piece opts to use the same deck building rules as Magic's Commander format, wherein the colour identity of the leader card dictates how you may build the deck. I've yet to give One Piece a try because I'm not keen on the IP, and no one I know wants to try it. It's also sold out everywhere. But judging from my experiences with other games, I'd say it's better designed on base level than Force of Will. Many other games have tried a variety of things, including replacing resource cards with an alternative resource system. But I wanted to bring up these games specifically because when discussing lands, both Duel Masters and Force of Will's resource systems are commonly brought up, or just the ideas behind them. One Piece is the current hotness, and now worth bringing up when discussing Force of Will's Magic Stone deck. All of these games have a unifying quirk, however, and I think that only becomes apparent when looking at not just game design, but game expansion, design space. While I'm not the biggest Magic fan in the world, far from, something I can really appreciate is just how versatile it is. It never ceases to amaze me just how many different things can be done within Magic that further adds meat to the bones. This includes cards that mitigate some of the natural chance derived from the engine, or turns what would be an unfortunate scenario into a game plan, such as thinning the deck of lands or turning them into man lands. When you start altering Magic's system, you will also start taking away from it. There are things in Magic you absolutely cannot do in Duel Masters, for an example, or related to resource cards. Pretty much everything bar ramp, getting cards out of their destruction, and checking the contents is gone, due to the fact they are normal cards being used in a secondary mode. This restricts the versatility of the game engine and what the developers can do within it. Now, kudos to Wizards, they've been running Duel Masters in Japan for over 20 years now, and restrictions can breed creativity, but they can also be frustrating, especially with ongoing games. Put the developers in a situation where they have nowhere to go but power creep. This is true for Force of Will too, though Force of Will does have a significantly increased design space over Duel Masters. There are things you just can't do in Force of Will that you can do in Magic. One Piece is more of a slide from Force of Will in terms of design space, due to the alternative functionality of Don cards and the apparent removal of their ability to do anything unique, something that has been regulated to the effects of other cards, usually at the cost of bouncing them. Ultimately, why I think land cards are neat is because you can do so much more with them than the alternatives. The increased design space they create by their habitation inside the deck, that's something I can really appreciate. It gives the developers more tools and the game more parts. They can play with them, making the game more interesting. Yes, lands have their frustrations, and people are going to swear by other systems. Perfectly understandable. This video isn't even arguing that LANs are better than other systems, just that it's not a case of strictly better. LANs do have a lot to offer, and you feel they're lost when they're gone. Till next time friends, this has been Some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.